I think a lot of people think that's, if I like theater, then I have to be on stage. And that's what I thought too. But by the time I was in high school, I was pretty clearly focused on being a designer. I loved telling stories. I loved all the narrative and the music and the spectacle and the drama of putting a story together. I just didn't want to be in the story. I wanted to support the story, and so that's what I did. First of all, it's possible. Secondly, if theater is something that seems remotely interesting to you, it's a lot of things. It's stage managing, it's general managing, it's company managing, it's producing, it's acting, it's designing, it's hair and makeup. And the other thing is, we need you. If you're interested in working in the theater, we need you. We are ready for you, and we need you.
If anything, besides for us in Black Theater United, making sure that young Black artists know that there are fields within design where if they have a passion for it, please, let's help you get there. Let's create those pipelines. The other thing is to also, no matter what kind of artist or human being or journey you want to take, to know that it is not one that is perfect, that it has ups and downs, and that's a part of living. The growth comes in those spaces of discomfort.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, Michael McElroy here again. I'm a proud founding member of Black Theater United. Welcome back to Before the Curtain Rises, the Designer Series. I am here with two-time Tony Award winner for Scenic Design and three-time Tony nominee this season, 2 in Scenic Design, 1 in Costume Design, the ridiculously talented David Zinn.
Hi, it's nice to see you.
Did you like that, how I just
It's so great. Right? No, keep going.
No, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
For Black Theater United, it's important that we are providing pipelines into every aspect of our industry. And all the designers that we've spoken with, and we've been on Zooms together, have been so enthusiastic about this process and this initiative that we're doing. So thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for starting this initiative. It's so important and a thrill to be a part of.
Good. So I want to go back.
Okay.
To Bainbridge
Island.
Off of Seattle.
Yep.
That's where you were born.
Yep.
How do you go from there? When did the acting bug? Because you wanted to be an actor first, yes? Well, we're going to put it all out there.
Yeah, like a lot of people, and I think that's so many people's gateway into it, especially people that end up in the technical side, because I think a lot of people think that's, if I like theater, then I have to be on stage. And that's what I thought too. And I liked being on stage. I love musicals. I was like that.
What was your favorite musical?
Annie, 100%. Oh,
Annie?
That I was in? I was never in Annie. I wanted to be Annie, of course, and Pepper. My favorite musical that I was in, The Wiz. I was probably in a production of The Wiz in the late 70s. It was really the first time I got to sing as part of a kind of ensemble of Munchkins. And, it's the greatest music ever written. And that was a thrill. And that bug just got me really hard. But yeah, since I was in elementary school, I just was interested in being in plays, and though I grew up in a small town, it had a really rich community theater, and it had a kind of series where children would perform, we would do theater it was like children's theater, but it was performed by children. So we kind of got thrown in, really immediately, and I really loved it. But I always, it's a little bit like Gatsby, right? Like the green light across the sound, I would be on stage, but the kind of beautiful blue light of the backstage kind of beckoned to me. And so I just my interest sort of floated over there. And I had folks who, my dad had worked in theater when he was younger, and so they were really supportive of the habit, and started again just sort of doing some acting and stuff. But by the time I was in high school, I was pretty clearly focused on being a designer. I just loved telling stories. I loved all the narrative and the music and the spectacle and the drama of putting a story together. I just didn't want to be in the story. I wanted to support the story, and so that's what I did.
So you were a munchkin in The Wiz and doing the whole acting thing, the acting bug, and then your focus started to kind of shift to what was happening backstage.
Yep.
and eventually coming on stage, but not in the acting field. So where did you go to college? When you got to high school, you were starting to make that shift. Where did you end up going to college?
Yeah, while I was in high school, I was interning. I started interning at some theaters in Seattle as a scenic artist, and met a kind of interesting connection of people, directors and set designers and costume designers and scenic artists, and that was sort of I started, I guess, my first internship between my sophomore and junior year, and so it was just as I was starting to kind of get serious about what might be happening after high school. And I kind of thought I wanted to go to the North Carolina School of the Arts. They had an incredible design program, still do have an incredible design program. But I lived in a small town, and I was like, I was like not dying to go to another small town. And some of the people that I knew mentioned NYU as a possibility, and I that going to New York seemed really thrilling, and so I looked into that program. And at the time, that was a program where you could, as an undergraduate, participate in the graduate design program. And I didn't know what any of those words meant. Like, truly didn't know what any of those words meant. And I was very proud. I didn't want to I didn't want to ask my parents for help. So I started to get those things, and they were like a graduate design program, which I just assumed meant a graduate design program. And I was like, well, obviously I want to graduate. So, that seems great. I'll do that. So when I got there, I started to understand what that really meant. But I came to New York in 1987 when I was 18 years old to go to school and figure out really what that life meant as just a way of life and as a way to work and be in the world. That started in 1987.
Wow.
Yeah.
So coming into this world of scenic and costume design, because you do both.
I do both.
Which is that rare?
It's not rare. It's like slightly less, or the tradition of it in America is slightly less of a thing. So it's not rare, but it's not common. Right. I think people tend to specialize. People like people to specialize. Schools like people to specialize, and they're two hard things, and I think it only really works if you have a fully passionate interest in both of those things. But if you do, then you should find people that support that. That was never any question for me. There was never any question at NYU of asking to do both. They were very supportive of that, right. and I was opportunities came to me that allowed that to it allowed me to pursue both things. But yeah, it's not super common.
Yeah. In that time, high school into college, who are some of your role models? Like people you looked at and said, "Oh, that's thrilling," or "That's exciting," that inspires me. Whose work?
I was sort of jokingly saying Annie was like the musical that got me started, but Annie came in 1980. It came as a touring production to the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle, and so seeing that production really kind of lit my brain on fire in terms of things that were possible. Chorus Line also came that season. So, Robin Wagner's incredible work for Dreamgirls and for Chorus Line was super influential. Santo Loquasto, because he was a set and costume designer, because he rendered so beautifully. Santo's work was really interesting to me. I also had a kind of burgeoning interest in experimental performance, and that mostly through reading about it. I read about the Wooster Group, I read about Richard Foreman, but the idea of that, the idea of kind of non-traditional performance and experimental, just ways of thinking about telling stories was also really interesting to me. I was also like, I was coming out of the closet. I was like a young queer kid at the time of AIDS, so sort of more political theater, people that were approaching the art form, performance art, there's kind of all the things, all ways of telling a story were interesting to me, but I would say kind of weirdly musicals and experimental theater were the things that kind of felt the most charged and exciting to me.
Wow. So talk us through when you are approached to do a show. What is that process like? Because I don't know if you're outside of our world that you understand the collaboration that happens, or how a costume or scenic designer's mind works when they read a script and go, yes, then what are the next steps?
Yeah. I mean, I usually what happens is that a director will call me and ask me if I'm interested in a particular production. It's although as a designer you work for a lot of people, you work for the director, you directly, your like closest relationship is with that of the director, although technically you work for the producer or the theater that hires you if you're working in a regional theater or something. But really the relationship is between the designer and the director. That's sort of the closest relationship. And often what will happen is a director will call and ask me if I'm interested in a particular project. Sometimes it's a director I've worked with before, sometimes it's a new person, sometimes it's a new person that I've known for a long time but have never worked with. And then usually if it's a new play, they'll send me whatever exists of that new play or musical. And if it's an existing play, Sam Gold called me about Enemy of the People that his wife Amy was adapting. I've known him for a long time. That's a play I know. And so I was able to just, even though Amy was adapting it, so I knew it would change. There's an existing script, that I'm able to kind of look at. But the process sort of starts at 2 points. Point one is like when that call comes and you first kind of encounter the text nakedly, right? You encounter the text with sort of no preconceptions, just like here's you and the script, and how do you respond to it? And then there's a conversation with the director, and sometimes that happens before that first reading of the script, but there's a conversation with the director in which sort of the context of the production starts to be born. And I would say both of those moments, the kind of free dreaming of like, it can be anything. How is this text making me respond? How is this music making me respond? Where am I dreaming? What's it making me think of? Am I imagining the audience is receiving this? Just like those dreams start. And then like, what are the specific circumstances of our dreams? And what are the specific circumstances of us telling the story, and how can we start to dream this up together? So it kind of starts in reading and listening and in talking,
So when you're reading, I know for me, when I read, I actually see things, images. When you're reading as a set designer or a costume designer, are you actually, as you're reading, even that first read, starting to see it in images almost, or is it just hear the words, let me just get the story? Yeah,
I try to, it's a good question, and frankly, it's really different. For me, like, I'm also not a great reader. Like, my husband's a very good reader. It's like, reads all the time, reads a lot. Reading's like slightly difficult for me, and I have to really concentrate to kind of make it through something. And I've tried to kind of make let's say the looseness with which I read things sometimes, a sort of an asset, which is it just allows a little bit more free association. So I do try to read very carefully to obviously follow the information. It's hard for me to do a super close reading the first time. Yes, sometimes images come, sometimes questions come, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's this. Sometimes the way that you get to the jewel, there's that thing about Michelangelo, right, which is that, it's a big block of marble and you just cut the marble away to reveal the thing. So sometimes you're getting rid of the things that aren't a part of the vision in order to find what the vision is. And sometimes you're like, oh, I have such a strong instinct for this. I don't know how it starts, but I know it ends with, X, Y, and Z. So it's a little bit of just a gathering and of trusting, this is the kind of keynote of collaboration, right? Trusting that if you don't have a super clear vision, or you don't have all the answers, or you're not really sure, that's okay too. The process really starts in unsurety, and it kind of starts in mutual unsurety. And that's nerve-wracking, but also really exciting, because you know at the end of this, when you get to the end of the road, there's going to be something revealed. And oftentimes you don't know what that is to begin with, but you have like a little oh, I do think it's this. And sometimes it's really tiny, and sometimes it's really big, but either is it's just how you start.
Yeah. And have you ever had, you were going along in this one journey, one direction, and then you go to like a first read through or a first to see a run and go, oh.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, it's this. Yes, especially with a new piece, it is like you're so sure that something is X, Y, and Z, and a lot of people can be sure, you and the director, and it's again there are so many first steps to things, and especially when it's a new piece, there's you encountering the material, there's you having the first conversation with the director. and then there's you kind of, meeting the actors and hearing the thing for the first time, and then there's you seeing the thing for the first time, and you seeing the thing for the first time in the theater, and all those times are beginnings. And the trick and the gift and the magic of what we do is that you have to sort of be open at all of those times, because sometimes when you've planned something very specific and you're all in the room together, it doesn't feel like what it is that you've planned, and you have to be able to change what it is and be alive to the thing in the room.
Yeah. So it's you bring your own special talents and skills and craft, but theater is collaboration. Yeah. So you have to stay open to what the director is doing, what the lighting designer is doing, and also what the actors are bringing, right? So that collaboration is absolutely essential.
Theater's also time, you know what I mean? Like theater's also, like there's it's the fourth dimension, right? Which is like you can control all of these static three-dimensional things, even if those things are very lively and involve projection and blah, 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 and things are moving. But then it's like the time that you're in that room together with the story changes everything, and you have to be responsive to that. And I think that can be frustrating, is like if you want something to be done. It's probably frustrating as an actor too. You're like, I crafted this performance. Like, what do you mean I have to change it? But it's the same way. I think we all come in with these things where we've made the thing to the best of our knowledge, and then we all get in the room together and kind of, it's so vulnerable. It's like, it's so, in a way that's really good, that it's like, are we on the same page? And sometimes you are, and sometimes you're not. And if you're not, it's like, how do we get on the same page? What is it we're making together alive in this room?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things really important about theater, live theater, is that there can be all these different personalities, but ultimately we are all moving towards 8:05 on a certain day, this show is going up.
Yep.
So we all have the same goal.
Yeah.
So, we just went through a really challenging time in our industry with the shutdown and everything that was happening on the streets across our country. And the theater industry kind of was exposed to a kind of harsh light at that time. And everyone's desire at that moment was to do something. Yep. But now we stand 2 years out and really wanting to be intentional about not being performative.
Yep.
Why is diversity important? Why is it important in the design world of our industry? Why is that important?
I mean, it's important because it's humanity. Like you can't reflect humanity unless you're reflecting humanity.
Right.
And humanity, mercifully, isn't white people. And so if you have a form that only reflects the experience of white people or a certain kind of people, you're only shedding light on that aspect of humanity. And there has to be another word for that isn't humanity, itty, or, like it's just a section of it.
Right.
And the great gift of theater is being in a room and, experiencing a human's story together with other humans. And I think you can't claim to achieve that experience unless there's a wider range of people in that room, both who are experiencing the story, whose stories are being told, who helped tell that story. It's just, you're doing something other than being a human. And mercifully, though the pandemic was a terrible thing that visited upon our world, it offered some time to, there was a boiling point that was coming, and that offered a time to be like, hey, we have a real problem. And we actually now, here's an industry that has been stopped in its feet. The advantage of being stopped in our feet was we had some time to talk to each other. And we had some time to have some difficult conversations, to go away from those conversations, be like, ooh, that was a difficult conversation, but then come back to it and be like, oh, actually, I'm hearing you, and this is, here's how maybe we could move forward. To have some, we've never been offered that. The job is such a hustle, as you know, and it's purposely a hustle, right? So that we don't spend time being like, hey, actually, this hustle isn't working for us. And so having that really year and a half to say, how can we affect some real change in our industry so that the people telling the story, purporting to tell the stories on behalf of humanity, actually look like humanity and actually have the breadth and depth of experience of humanity. So, those were baby steps, and the journey continues. But the Black Theater United, the Black Theater Coalition, there were Design Action, there were so many. So much of being a professional theater artist can sometimes be frustrating, and we have a long way to go. And also, I felt like, as an industry, we tried to answer that call in a way that felt like action was actually happening and that progress was maybe possible. And that in a deeply disheartening and confusing and super depressing time was actually a little bit heartening. And the journey continues, with the great work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's, thank you for that. As we think about that and we think about diversity and making sure that there are pipelines into the design fields in our industry so that we're diversifying, so that there are more, artists at the table bringing their perspective, their lived experiences, which only opens up the potential for more stories to be told than we possibly could imagine. What are some of the things, I know this is your own particular perspective, but what are some things that you would tell a young artist or someone who might have an interest or an inkling in either scenic design or costume design? What are some of the things that you would tell them to possibly consider? Because I know that there's not just one path. Yeah. But if you're like, 13, 14, 15, and you go, that looks interesting. What do you say to that young?
I mean, I would say this. I guess what I would say is, if first of all, it's possible. Secondly, if theater is something that seems remotely interesting to you, it's a lot of things. It's stage managing, it's general managing, it's company managing, it's producing, it's acting, it's designing, it's hair and makeup. And the other thing is, we need you. If you're interested in working in the theater, we need you. We are ready for you, and we need you. So I guess the first thing I would say is, hopefully you're watching one of these videos, and hopefully that something is inspiring there. And if some branch of that is inspiring, reach out to that person. Find out where that person studied. Email that person. Email, Black Theater United and say, how do I get in touch with? Just reach out. Yeah. Ask the question. Just write the email. If you're, one of the things I think that is really scary about going into a life in the arts is disappointing your family, because what they're hoping for you, it seems on the outside like an unstable job. And it's like, how is that, first of all, how is that a job? And secondly, how do you make a living? And you and I are both here to say that there is a way to make a living at this job, and there's a way to make an okay living at this job, and a good living at this job, and a rich living, and a life that is full, right? If your interest is calling you to architecture or fashion or music, you're looking for, you're looking for your tribe. You're looking for people who understand the way that you perceive the world, and who, by the way that they perceive the world, help you understand your place in the world. And if you feel like that the arts is a way for you to help unlock that, you are correct. They are, and walk towards that light. And please assure your family that life can be a lucrative life. And, take it from there. But start asking questions, start reaching out. One of the obstacles to this job is that, it's immediately like, well, you have to go to this university and you have to go to this thing. And those can be such insanely prohibitive, just a barrier to kind of get to the business of expressing yourself. So, we're working on that also. You don't have to go to a fancy school to be an artist. You don't have to go to school to be an artist. Those are great things to do, and there are places that can help you achieve that dream if that's where you want to go. But also, the most important thing is that you do the thing that you're interested in. You explore the thing that you're interested in. And if you're having a hard time finding a place to do that or a way to do that in your town, just find somebody else who is doing it and ask them if they have any advice and how they did it. And just reach out,
To be curious and be vulnerable in the ability to say, I need, can you help me? Because most people really do want to. And I think, we live in this time where we see so much of the finished product that we don't see the process. So really helping this younger generation to understand that there will be ups and downs, there will be valleys and mountaintops, and that is part of the process. But it's such a rich process because it teaches you resilience, and it really helps you to get to know yourself as an artist and a human being, and know if this is really something that I want to do. But you got to start with being incredibly curious and actually being vulnerable enough to reach out and say, I saw you on that video. Can we get on a Zoom, or can you give me some words of whatever, encouragement, advice, anything to help me on my journey?
100%.
So all of this isn't Tony Award nominations. All of this isn't Broadway. All of this isn't, getting the gig. A lot of it is a lot of other things where it's kind of like you're planting seeds, right? You're doing all the things to prepare for that harvest, right? Every collaboration is not an easy one.
That is correct. Sometimes for good, you know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes the hardest ones. What's the diamond thing? Like, friction, the hardest friction makes the diamond, or whatever. Sometimes the most beautiful jewels can come from the hardest collaborations. Yeah, for sure.
So what are the things, when you're in that moment of, I can't quite, or I don't understand what that director's saying, or this didn't come out the way. What are the things that keep you present, keep you inspired, keep you centered?
I can't vouch for being centered, particularly ever, but
I'll take that one.
But you actually used a word. You kept talking about curiosity, which was such a beautiful way to actually talk about, I think, the thing that as an artist is central to you and is your breadcrumbs out of the woods. Your curiosity. If you're not a curious person, first of all, then why are you a person? But also, that's certainly why are you an artist? Because that curiosity, that, oh my God, like I loved this one song by this artist. If your next question ought to be, who influenced that artist?
Yes.
Where did those things come from? Like, every artist is a gateway to another huge family of artists. And a huge range of ways of seeing the world, and seeing the world through other people's eyes, whether those are fine artists who make a sculpture that blows your mind, or does an installation that blows your mind, or a musician who uses a phrase in a way that you just like blows your mind. You should. That's the beauty of our job, is that we kind of get we let our minds get blown a lot. Like we have that experience of just like going through these portals of other artists. So for me, I always try to find, if I'm stuck or I'm lost or I don't know how to move a particular thing forward, I sort of either I go back to the people that I know and have been, inspired me along, and those are fashion designers and architects and artists and musicians and all of the things, the world of kind of making images and thinking about the world in a kind of deep and soulful way. And if I've exhausted that and I still feel like I'm not sure I have a way forward, I do exactly that. I'm like, well, cool. Like what inspired Audre Lorde when she was writing this one? Like how is, what was Nick Drake listening to when he wrote that thing? Like who else can I find to help lead me through this? And I think that having a curiosity and an enthusiasm for experiencing humanity through other people's eyes and thoughts and ears will kind of get you out of any place that you're stuck in, And so that's what keeps me inspired. I keep asking questions. I keep assuming that I don't have the final answer. I sort of never rest in a way that doesn't feel bad. It feels really energizing because how can you have seen all the pictures that were painted or seen all the sculptures that were made or listened to all the music? There's always more, and people are always making more. And that is such a, you're, as a theater artist, you're like synthesizing so many different kinds of art to sort of help tell your story. So you're making your own vocabulary, but you're using space, you're using light, you're using sound, you're using movement, you're using all of these disciplines. And so there's an inexhaustible ocean of inspiration out there, and you just have to want to wade into it.
Yeah. It's something that you just said that just sparked something for me is, as an artist, getting comfortable living in the space of I don't know. Which is hard in this day because we're supposed to all have the answers. We're conditioned to do the right thing, that there's one way to do it, as opposed to, as an artist, that discomfort.
Yeah.
Getting comfortable with that discomfort, or as my friend Angela Robinson says, living in the valley of preparation.
Yeah, wow.
And that moment there, so something is being changed, something's being honed, something's being taken away or built up, so that when you get to that mountaintop moment, you appreciate it, but it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Right? But it's really those other moments that are the places where you're learning what you're made of, where you're developing that resilience. And I think, if anything, besides for us in Black Theater United, making sure that young Black artists know that there are fields within design where if they have a passion for it, please, let's help you get there. Let's create those pipelines. The other thing is to also, no matter what kind of artist or human being or journey you want to take, to know that it is not one that is perfect, that it has ups and downs, and that's a part of living. And the discomfort, the growth comes in those spaces of discomfort.
Yeah.
Right? And so whether you're going to be a lighting designer, costume designer, set designer, or an actor, whatever, just know that it's not because you made the decision, all of a sudden it's just, I'm on the path and I go and I coast along. There are moments of up and down, because what we do is, like you said, is about the human experience. And whatever field you choose to use to express that, it is about the human experience. So humanity goes in many different directions at any given time, and you have to be open to that.
Yeah, and I think, you don't go, for instance, as you said earlier, I've been nominated for 3 Tonys this year. That is not a hard experience to navigate. That's just really nice.
Yes.
I know how infrequent that is. I know what a crazy lotto draw that is. Navigating really good things isn't especially difficult. I don't find. I go to the theater to help understand. I listen to music. I go to the movies to help I read to help understand how to navigate when things aren't 3 Tony nominations in a year. Do you know what I mean? Which is P.S. the rest of my life. And that's where the beauty is.
Yes.
Yes. The icing is that thin. The rest of the cake is the thing you have to kind of make your way through. And that's we need everybody's stories to help us make our way through this life, because this life involves everybody.
And these wonderful accolades are wonderful, and you really want to embrace that and say that's a really wonderful thing, but they can't define you.
Yeah, absolutely, because then it means you're defined by the bad things too.
Yep.
You're defined by both things. You're defined by the whole range. And that's what makes a person, and that's what makes an artist.
Thank you. This is being a young 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old and saying it to parents who may not be artistically they may go see a play or a concert, but it's a different thing when your child is saying, I want to go into this field. And to everyone outside of the field, they think there's nothing secure about that.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that in the world in which we live, nothing today
I was going to say
secure.
That too.
So what do you say, how to empower a young artist? Is there any words of advice that you could give them in articulating to their parents, or for them to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, there's every job, every field has a threshold of success, and there is space under that threshold where you're not succeeding. But every field, including the theater, has an incredible threshold of success. Paul Taswell, one of our very, very great costume designers, has had a success. I don't think even Paul maybe imagined what an incredible, where that career was going to go. Clint Ramos has had an incredible, rich, he's producing theater now. There are so many avenues to succeed in the arts in so many different places. Again, you can be a hair and wig person. You can take those skills and work in television. You can be a prop person. You can be a stagehand. You can be, there's at every juncture. if a piece of furniture came on stage, somebody's in charge of picking that furniture and making sure it comes on stage. Those are two great, very remunerative jobs, which are great which can be creative and which are also a great thing to do while you're also trying to understand what else it is that you might do with your talent. So there are as many abilities to succeed in the theater as there are in any job. And bring your parents to these conversations. The American Theater Wing has a great video series where they talk to different professionals. Watch those with your parents, you know, write me an email and ask me, you know, I understand the fear and that fear is kind of a beautiful thing. Your parents want you to succeed. And that's incredible. But part of you succeeding is following your passion. And you can do both of those things. You can succeed fiscally, and you can fulfill your passion, and you can do that with a life in the arts.
Yeah. And for me, all of the skills that you learn as an artist are transferable.
Oh my God.
Collaboration, being able to read a room, be able to engage many different kinds of people. All of these skills, these like life skills, that you learn as an artist or in our industry can be transferred to so many different fields.
100%. Yeah, at least, right. You go to college, you explore that in high school, you explore it in college. Maybe it turns out that it's not for you, but it has, I guarantee you, it's going to turn you into a better business person, a better, community leader, fill in the blank, like the increasing your empathy, increasing your ability to listen to a group, increasing your ability to come as a group together to a decision is not going to be bad for you in anything that you choose to do. And that's what we do all the time. You know, it's negotiating. It's powerful, thoughtful, intelligent, emotional people negotiating ideas together in a room. And that's really thrilling. And as you say, that's life. If you can do that, you can kind of do anything.
Yeah. I have a friend from college. I studied theater at Carnegie Mellon, and after a year and a half, she decided, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a lawyer. And now she's a big lawyer in DC, and she's like, I'm so grateful for that year and a half of theater. I use that theater all the time. When she was a trial lawyer, now she's working in bigger businesses, but she said that year and a half, I still value that. It set the foundation for the kind of X that I am: lawyer, doctor, real estate person, whatever that is.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, just tell them that. Just tell them, I'm just doing this until I become a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah, I promise.
Yeah,
year and a half, I'll be a lawyer, I swear. Yeah,
I promise. I'll get to it. No, but that's good. Last question.
Yeah.
If you could, and I know this is challenging but exciting, which is what we do.
Yep.
Say in one word what it is that you do as an artist, whether that's through your work as a scenic designer or as a costume designer. What would that word be?
True to my character, I'm going to buck the rules and just use a few words, but maybe it'll boil down. I think both as a costume designer and as a set designer, what I'm trying to do is make a space for humanity to show itself and tell its story. I often talk about scenery as a little bit of a jewel, like a jewel case. You open the necklace and it's black velvet and this like diamond necklace on the thing, and so it's the I make the velvet for the diamond necklace, and the diamond necklace is all of us, is humanity. I make the campfire. I make the place for people to sit around the campfire. Help the humanity that's in the room hear and receive the story together.
Yeah. You define the world. I mean, it's like, as an artist, when I put on that costume, when I walk on that set, I have no other choice. It actually helps me to tell that story that exists within that world, within that social moment, that culture.
Yeah. This is Richard Foreman, who's one of our great experimental theater director and writers, uses a phrase when he talks about, he often designed his own pieces, which were like this incredible, beautiful dream world. And he always he didn't call it scenery, he basically called it a reverberation box, and a reverberation chamber. And I love that. Like I make the walls for the energy to bounce around in. And that, to me makes the most sense about describing what it is that I do.
Thank you so much for taking this time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
And thank you for being a collaborator and an ally with Black Theater United. I'm so excited where this designers initiative is going to go. We're kind of releasing it, this is the designer series where you get to meet the designers, hear about the different fields, right? And then there's another part coming that you can find on our website, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then there'll be a part 3. So all of that is to come. So you'll want to stay connected. Thank you, David Zinn.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, always.
Thanks.
So if you want to be a member of our community, and we'd love to have you, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you push that notification bell so that you get all of the videos, everything, the content, you get it right away. And if you ever want to find out anything about what we're doing, please, go to our website, www.blacktheaterunited.com. Everything will be there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Black Theater United, creating pipelines for you, the future of our industry.